Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this webinar, Forecast for the Access Industry. We're just going to give it a few seconds to allow people to come on board, and then we will officially start. But as I say, it'll only be a few seconds, so we're nearly there. But thank you very much, everybody, as you come into this webinar for joining us. Okay, well, I think we'll get started now. So, hello and welcome again. My name is Euan Youdale, editor of Access International. Thanks for joining us for this live discussion about the year ahead for the access industry and how some of the trends are set to develop across the sector. And this webinar is brought to you by KHL Group's Access Lift and Handlers and Access International, and it will be jointly hosted by my colleague, Lindsey Anderson, editor of Access Lift and Handlers. So welcome, Lindsey.
Thanks, Euan. Yes, today's webinar is going to take a look at the market and how it will develop in 2022 with a specific focus on Europe and North America. We have an expert panel of speakers for you today, which I would like to personally thank for joining us. And they are Karel Huijser, General Manager and Vice President for EMEAIR, JLG. He's been with the company since 2012. Chris Para, COO of US-based Able Equipment Rental. In 2009, Chris founded HighReach, a rental company in Pennsylvania, which he then later sold to Sunbelt Rentals, and he joined Able just about 5 years ago. We also have Ivan Papell. He is the owner of 2 access rental companies in Spain, including Liftisa, of which he is CEO. Ivan has more than 25 years of experience in the industry. Thank you all again. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, EasyBook Training and Lawson's Global Recruitment. Euan, back to you.
Okay, so thank you. You may have been expecting one further speaker, Paul Rankin of Nationwide Platforms and Loxam Powered Access Division. Unfortunately, he is unable to make it today due to last-minute commitments around the fast-changing COVID-19 restrictions. So we apologise for that, and he apologises for not being with us. However, I'm certain the 3 panellists we have with us today can cover things more than adequately. So before we get started, I would just like to add that you are welcome to send in questions to the panel as we go along. So please use the Q&A panel rather than the chat option, and then we'll know where to look for them. There will also be a recorded version of this webinar on our website soon, which is the way a lot of people choose to watch these types of discussions. So with no further ado, let's begin. I'd just like to ask Karel this question before we open it out to the others. Obviously, we have now the spread of the new the COVID-19 variant, Omicron. I know that manufacturers have been through enough upheaval already as a result of the pandemic, but how has the new variant affected your business, and how do you see it affecting it on an international level?
I'm convinced I had it personally myself, the new one, but I'm not sure. But how it affects the new version, how it affects, I don't know. I don't think we all know what it's really going to do, if it's more severe or more contagious. I think it's a warning that this COVID thing is not going to go away. So we were talking, let's say, in September, October, within JLG about pre-COVID and after COVID, and the COVID period itself. I think this COVID thing is not going to go away. So we need to stabilize around it and make sure that the business can just continue, and understanding that this will come back. This won't go away. But maybe I'm too Dr. Doom here, but in the good side, it would go away, and then it's only better. And
Chris, have you seen an impact from the new variant on rental operations here in North America?
We're having, from our own personal experience at our employee base, we're constantly having to shift employees from location to location to try and cover. We never find ourselves to be overemployed, but since COVID and now the new variant, it's just when we thought it was going to be behind us, it seems as though that it's reappearing on a weekly basis, and we're located in 5 different states, and there isn't any one that's less or more affected by it right now. So yes, from a customer standpoint, we're really not seeing any net effect but from an employee management standpoint, we are.
And Ivan, what about you? And also adding to that, are there any protocols or practices that you've implemented and will stay on long-term in relation to COVID-19?
Well, we regarding or considering the new variant, we haven't heard anything, but we of course have implemented or had implemented when COVID got in, and then certainly they will stay. We have to be a lot more conscious on self-awareness and so on and so forth. But yeah, we have implemented some, and they will stay certainly.
Okay, and how have you seen COVID-19? Do you think it's changed your businesses at all? Are there practices in place now that you see it remaining in the long term because of the pandemic? Chris?
In each of our locations where we once had somewhat mostly of an open atmosphere in our, as we would call it, the rental bullpen or the service bullpen, everything is now all cubicles and cordoned off by plastic. And even though that we were experiencing improvement on the COVID-19, we decided to keep everything back in place so that we felt more private, more protected. But everyone is very, very conscious of temperature and masks, and job sites are being treated differently. Some are not allowing you to show up on a job site. Some you have to have your COVID vaccination certificate to be able to service equipment that's on the job site. It's been quite an obstacle, but we've been able to manage well through it. Having now a year and a half of experience of preparing for COVID and living with it, it's now it becomes a normal way of doing business.
Yeah, I see. And so we'll move on then to the business and see how things are progressing as far as CapEx. Now, obviously, there's been lots of CapEx pressures over the COVID experience for everybody. But how do you see that? How do you see your capital expenditure for the next 12 months, considering the current situation? Ivan, could you start by answering that? You're based in Southern Europe.
Yeah, we well, certainly now with all these delays and price increases and so on and so forth, has put a lot of pressure on rental companies as well. We have to plan much ahead and see how we can manage that. We have been in some cases asked to place orders without knowing at what price we were going to be paying the units. So we have to make investments without knowing delivery dates nor pricing. That of course affects the capex. Even though we are investing, of course, we're again investing in new equipment rather than secondhand. And but yeah, if equipment is planned to arrive late 2022, we might need to postpone that into 2023. And that's how it's already going. That's the direction it's taking. Most of suppliers don't have quick delivery, and that of course we need to adapt our businesses accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, from a North American standpoint,
we've been investing significantly. So we've had our plans long before COVID of what our 5-year plan was going to look like, providing revenues we're going to be able to accommodate the investments that we've been making. And at the same time that we've doing some acquisitions of dated companies that are within our region, and we're still in the process of acquiring a couple of other companies, that combined with the utilization of their inventory or their fleet to be able to help with ours and vice versa. But we've been doing much of what Ivan has been saying and getting ahead of the curve on the ordering, making certain that at least we're in line among other users of the inventory. And what we've also been doing is contacting the vendors, a couple of times a week, asking who has canceled what currently is coming off the line that doesn't have a name tag on it already. We may consider buying 14-foot scissors if 19-foot scissors are too far out. And we're just trying to accommodate the inventory that's available and working hand in hand with the vendors. But our CapEx was very strong for 2021, and it's far stronger for 2022.
Thanks, Chris. And Karel, from a OEM's perspective, can you just kind of give us, the rental trend view you're seeing in regard to CapEx?
Yeah, I think what Chris and Ivan said is very clearly the case. The demand is higher than the supply, so hence the delays and the availability of product. The price increases is more connection with the whole supply chain. I don't know if we say chaos, but it's not the most easy supply chain situation we have had for many, many years. I sincerely hope that both Chris and Ivan can bring that into their rental pricing, and that probably is a very tough game to play, but it's probably important for the whole industry. But we see the same. We see the demand indeed being much stronger than the supply that I think not only we, but most of the suppliers together can handle.
And kind of piggybacking off that, Karel, we had a question come in that says, what concerns do you see for supply chain issues in 2022? And what should be the appropriate response of both the public and private sectors?
Yeah, actually, if you look at the pricing part that Ivan mentioned, the steel pricing and other pricing that are going really high, I would expect in 22-23 that will get better, as well as the logistics situation over the world with the ridiculous pricing on containers and other situations where I don't see this getting worse, although I have said that a couple of months ago and then saw the results. But we should see more at ease there, and that will help the whole industry going further.
Yeah, and on the subject of the pricing, actually, there's another question here about rental rates. Do you see your company increasing rental rates, and do you see many others following suit in 2022? So, Ivan, what would you say to that?
Well, that's one of the main concerns we have. The purchase of the machines will have a price raise around 5 to 12%, and you see rental rates. We have always been struggling in putting them up. They have consistently throughout the years have been dropping. So we have to find ways to keep profitability of our businesses. But that's one of the things we really, as rental companies, need to look into and make sure that we bring these price raises into rental rates. And that is, to me, that's very challenging. But we need to start implementing that very rapidly.
Yeah, and Chris, would you feel the same way?
During 2021, we've taken 5% increases during the year, and we recently implemented a rate approval system within our system for there are book rates that are in our system. There's an allowable discount of 10 to 15%, and then beyond that, both the inside salespeople and the outside salespeople are locked out, and they would need further approval in order to discount additionally. We take a look at our transportation costs at the same time, which, diesel and oil have gone up dramatically in the last 12 months, but we're still charging the same old delivery and pickup rates. So we've just changed that as well and increased it appropriately. And there's going to be some pushback, but we really have to educate our customers. More importantly, we're educating our employees so they can educate our customers on what the costs are. You're always going to have someone come visit you and explain that on this one job site, I was told that all of these prices are this low. Well, that might be the truth, and you may need to just go to another job site because that's we can't rent ourselves out of business. And first one out of inventory at the lowest rate certainly loses.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, we've got another question about the supply situation. Do you see a shift in the market toward more niche-oriented equipment to make up for a lack of the supply and more mainstream rental equipment? Ivan, would you like to kick off that?
Yeah, we have actually, during the last couple of years, or 3 years, I'd say, we've been focusing our business towards niche markets. We thought it didn't make a lot of sense competing, doing the same as what everyone else was doing. So we focused on really niche markets, and there you can perform, you can manage your business a lot better, and customers are certainly more, let's say, adaptable to what you propose.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. And what about the market situation generally? Maybe starting with Europe. I mean, obviously things we see where Southern Europe has picked up. Generally, markets like Spain and Italy have had improved seemingly since COVID, whereas Northern European countries are also increasing well, but maybe not quite as quickly as they are in Southern Europe. How do you see the overall market development in Europe, Karel?
I think in general, I see it very positive. If you look at the whole equation, and like you said, some parts of Europe are going faster than others, but they're all going up at the moment. And what is interesting, not only volume-wise or demand-wise, this whole electrification sustainability trend that started a couple of years ago on top of the electrical products that we already see in the market, was a very Scandinavian, a little bit Northern German activity, and it's now also spreading out over full Europe. So it's becoming a much more pan-European thought than it was before. So also the shift within the demand is generally getting more to the electrification.
Yeah, I see it, and even, I mean, obviously you're based in Spain, and so how have you found the change in the market there? You know, since pre-COVID to now.
Well, the market is changing. There's certainly a lot more demand now. Well, there is money to be lent, so since there is money, and rental companies had previously reduced their fleets, now they're willing to get more equipment in. And certainly, the market is growing. That's basically how we see it. And although there is that's a tendency in Spain concerning rates, people get desperate when or rental companies get desperate when they have their lanyard full of equipment. So we struggle to keep rental rates up, and then as soon as we get machines out, then we start buying more equipment. So I don't know if that's happening the same. It's the same also in the States, but that's how we're managing it.
Chris, would you like to answer that?
Well, that's the perfect picture. If you can manage it that way, with the supply chain being slower than any of us would appreciate right now, we're having to get out in front of the supplies and understanding that it's going to be dated. But going back to the niche, we've been investing significantly in the electric products, the pick and carry cranes, and mostly in the Magni rotating telehandlers. And that's really filled in an awful lot of gaps. We're promoting and higher rates so that we're not just another Me Too individual offering 19-foot scissor lifts. And it's really helped our business grow in several different markets.
Yeah, and actually there's a question here. Do you find yourself purchasing from different manufacturers due to availability? How would you, Chris, how would you find that at the moment?
You know, it's very easy that you could find vendors, some of those whom you might not have previously purchased from that would have goods today. But, we have dozens of service vehicles out on the road, and we have significant investments in our parts departments to be able to not only supply for our own rental business, but for other customer-owned equipment. And we have considered looking at different brands, certainly brands that are coming out of the United States and in Asia. And then we find ourselves, then there's some core competency that we have with the primary manufacturers, the JLGs and Genies and Skyjacks and similar. And your employees are trained, your customers are already trained, and you have sufficient expectations on both of those levels, where we've decided to really narrow down the choice of vendors that we would buy from and remaining with the old crew.
Yeah, absolutely. And Karel, how do you find that pressure, maybe from the non-traditional manufacturers such as JLG and Genie in the market?
No, I think the more the merrier. So there are more OEMs coming in the marketplace. If you take the three markets, it's maybe too easy, but if you take the American market, European market, and the Asian market, all three markets, even now the US is seeing more and more OEMs playing a role. But that means, and back to Chris's point, for us, it means that we need to focus on training and on service and making sure that really that we keep that up to the highest level. Because of the availability issue now, people have the choice and are even forced into a choice to go somewhere else. And then we need to make sure that either they don't go or they come back. And it's not only the product, it's the whole picture around it that is very important to keep the business to yourselves. But at the end, it keeps us sharp, and it's good for us also to know that there are alternatives and opportunities for other for rental companies to go elsewhere.
Yeah, talking about Southern Europe, well, it's probably Chinese manufacturers are putting a lot of pressure on traditional manufacturers such as JLG, Genie, Holot, so on and so forth. But I think what we see now in Europe, they need to understand each market, and they have to adapt themselves, or they will have to adapt themselves to the market, to different markets. It's not just a matter of supplying machines or dropping machines into that market. You have to maintain them, you have to support them. So I think that's a big challenge the Chinese manufacturers are already facing within Europe, and I guess it's probably the same in the States. So it's not about just the product, the quality of the product they are supplying is much better than the one that used to be many years ago. And that also depends on if you're talking to slab scissors or big booms, and that is there is a certain difference there. But of course, as we say, I think they need to do something else rather than just drop machines or sell machines.
And Chris, from your perspective, are you seeing an impact from Chinese MEWP OEMs in North America?
Oh yeah, well, we're certainly being solicited by many of the Chinese and OEMs at this point, and frankly, some of them have a decent product. It's not going to be understated that they've not gone ahead and created this talent and not having done their research. But if you look at the significance of equipment rental on construction projects, whether it be infrastructure or whichever, the sum of inventory that are dedicated to construction products are only a very small percentage of the actual cost or value of the project. The largest percentage, of course, has to do with materials, but then the second largest is labor. So our equipment begins to really have great focus on it when it isn't working. And if we're not able to manage the serviceability from either a parts or dispatch perspective and able to keep the equipment running, it really doesn't make much difference what color it is or what the rental rate was. Right now, we haven't any production, and that is very, very costly. So those are our focuses, and frankly, how we try and differentiate ourselves from most of our competitors.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. And before we move on to a different subject here, there's a question which is very pertinent at the moment. Is talent acquisition currently a challenge for you? And what is your company doing to attract and retain talent? Euan, how are you finding that situation?
Well, we've seen it changing and becoming more and more difficult throughout the years, especially after COVID. So you have to make sure that you supply a career projection for the people. Otherwise, people are looking away and so on and so forth. So you have to really take care of that. Take a deep look into it. It's not just as you said, it's not just a matter of renting machines out. It's a service you give, and that service we give it depends upon people. So it's people who's the most important. So we have to really pay attention and take care of that.
Yeah, and Karel, what would be your view? As a manufacturer, which areas are you finding most difficult as far as getting and retaining talent?
Well, clearly, the scarcity of people in the plant, the welders, people that are assembling the products. Because of the whole COVID and the whole situation around it, you already have the scarcity, you have other scarcity drivers. So there is a lot of pressure on the people, and people get offers from outside. You need to make sure, in this case, and it is because it's a broad talent challenge, not only in the plant, but also in the office. For the office people, you need to make sure that you stay really close to your people. And the communication is different now. In the plant as such, people are still working, although it's also there different. In the offices, people are more and more working hybrid or even fully at home. It's still very important to stay close to your people. And we've introduced a lot of new mechanisms of communications. We've done smaller town halls. We have done short surveys, pulse surveys, we call them. We've done, I'm even sending a Happy Monday email to my people that they can directly react on themselves, just to feel the temperature of the water and how people are feeling. Because in the before COVID time, you could see that happening in office. You meet people, you can see if they're happy or not happy. It's much more easy than when you're in distance, but there is a lot of demand for people, so it's even more important than ever.
In all of the markets in which we operate, all of our drivers, technicians, inside or outside, are all union. So the scale of pay is very similar depending on the market, but it's still one that's governed by a contract. We've been working really hard at selling the brand. So if we've not had employees, the greatest majority of them, that have only worked for us, the greatest majority have worked at other places prior to coming to join us. So we promote the brand among all of our employees as they're sharing their experiences with other employees at our competitors. We're getting applications from those individuals saying that they had heard about what takes place inside of Able, and they'd be very interested to interview with us. I rehired a truck driver yesterday who worked for me 15 years ago, and he is currently one of the consolidators drivers. And he said, "Do you have an opening for me? Because I would prefer to come back." That is worth so much. And it really, to me personally, is the greatest compliment to our company, because there is someone who understands what our operation is like, what we personally are like, running a family-owned business, and he wants to choose to climb on board. It's a full-time job that I'm sure everyone is experiencing, but the employee interaction doesn't really rank second to very many.
Chris, are you seeing a push for maybe increased wages or certain incentives to, keep those employees on hand?
Yeah, there are some employees that, of course, the non-union employees that have a difficult time shooting a foul shot, and they want to come to your desk and get the wage of a 3-point shooter, and it's just not. But right now, the pickings are so thin that you need to once again negotiate all of that. And we try and put a carrot out in front to show that there's going to be a better opportunity the longer that they're here. And we certainly have profit sharing that we invest in, and showing our employees that based on our performance and their performance, frankly, is what ends up allowing us to pay more. But you can't pay on income that isn't generated, because that then only the employee will survive, but the business gets quite weak.
I think we have been facing that in the past as well. Talent is always, we're lacking talent all the time, and you're always negotiating with your employees, or in life, you're always negotiating. It's a matter of taking and giving, and of course, you have nowadays there is a lot of uncertainty, and people don't like uncertainty. So we have to tell what we're doing. We have to show what we're doing. We have to give comfort. We have to be honest and straightforward. And I think if we do all that, and of course taking care of them, it will be a lot easier.
Thank you. And to move on to a different subject now, sustainability. And I know that Lindsey's going to ask in a minute about electric equipment specifically and developments in that area. But tied in with that, I suppose, is corporate social responsibility, CSR. And what initiatives are you introducing, or have you been introducing at your companies to, in light of that? Karel, what initiatives are JLG looking at the moment?
And I presume you mean initiatives outside of making product and designing product.
Yes, that's right. We'll talk about product in a minute, but maybe more general initiatives. Yeah.
So we are a member of the Supply Chain Sustainability School. We are obviously a member of the ERA Sustainability Committee. We're signed up with EcoVadis, so we're becoming a member of the, let's say, the sustainability environment or society. I don't know how you call it, the tribe. There are a lot of instances there where you can become a member of, which will take time, but you get a lot of it back. Our parent company, Oshkosh, is named for the third consecutive years Dow Jones Sustainability Company, and they have a whole list of programs that we are as a part of them. Of course, also adhering to. It looks even broader than sustainability, only looking at green. It also looks at quality of education, gender equality, diversity. It is even a broader sense of, well, sustainability as such is broad, but normally people translate it immediately to green and electrification and other things. So we're doing a lot of initiatives.
And Chris, beyond the pure product side of things, what from a rental company point of view, how are you adapting to the new world?
Oh, part of it has us creating environments that are more appreciative for the employees to work in. So we're not having sloppy shops or small lunch areas for people to work in and to relax in. We try and have a very bright environment in which everyone is working so that they don't feel as though, and frankly, the environment is a reflection of what you're going to get from the employee. So we're always adding something new, something shiny, whether it be in clothing or winter goods or safety products or round tables, or it's honestly, it's not only a full-time job, but it's part of our business practice from every department within our company to make certain that, look, I've been doing this for an awful long time. And every single week I'm experiencing something I've never experienced before. So I try to be a really good listener and implement the things that are being recognized and brought to our attention where improvement is suggested. And anytime someone sees the reflection of their suggestion to you that you've now turned into an actual habit, it's a feather in everyone's cap.
Yeah, and Ivan, what are the challenges in those areas as far as you see it?
Well, we've done more or less the same as Chris was saying, and also Karel. Of course, we're a much smaller company than JLG or no, but of course you have to, as we said, take care of your people. Just listen to them, ask them, and see what they would like to do. We've put a gym in different depots. We have even a pool table. So you've got these open spaces, relaxed areas. People stay. You see, they go in at 7, they leave at 6. They live there, so they have to have their own time. They might go out running. So you have to adapt yourself to reality. You have to adapt the company to the new reality, and yeah, that's the way it is. And we want to feel relaxed, comfortable. We all want to do that. So we are approaching that direction, and I think it's giving it back.
Kind of in relation to that, how do you see rental fleets and rental operations changing over the next 5 years? Will there be a push toward electrification, hybrid equipment? Do you see certain regions changing and helping or undercutting your operations? Chris, do you want to start?
Well, we're each predominantly focused on construction, but we've been looking, as I mentioned earlier, at pick and carry cranes and going into museums and moving the artifacts and going into hospitals and moving MRI machines and X-ray machines and dental machines, or helping with the movement of escalators and elevator parts. Those are all things that are related to electric equipment, but it's not your regular food chain, if you will, for a sales rep to be looking at some of those specifics. We're in the Smithsonian all the time, working at different levels of what their requirements are for either upkeep or renovations. And it's you have to be different. You're always having to stop turning right as you go down the street. You have to make some left turns to understand what might be on the forefront. So yeah, electric machines are certainly something that we're promoting more and more.
And Ivan, seeing the same in Spain?
Yeah, well, actually, over 95% of our fleet are eco machines, so either electric or hybrid machines. So that leaves a small percentage on diesel equipment. We quite a few years ago, we focused on this direction. But I'm not sure the whole infrastructure behind will support full electric machines in the future. I think we'll need to focus on a hybrid machines most probably, and I think that's the direction we need to look into. But if we talk on vehicle mount aerials, there we depend on manufacturers, and their electric vehicles are not supporting electric lifts. So they need to be either gas. Well, actually nowadays they can only be gas, and so that in some situations you have a choice. In some others, in some other markets, you don't have a choice because there is some barriers such as weight, for example, in Europe, which is very important on A driving license or B driving license. If you want to drive with a 3.5 ton vehicle. So there are some barriers in some markets, but yes, our focus 3 or 4 years ago already was on electric machines, and that's why over 95% of our fleet is eco-friendly.
And Karel, from JLG's perspective, there is a talk of the increased need of infrastructure to charge electric equipment. Do you see OEMs starting to invest and maybe manufacture things that could assist with that on job sites?
I think this is probably the biggest challenge for the future. We're not only us, our industry, every industry is electrifying. Therefore, you need an infrastructure that can cope with it. I think we are in this together. OEMs might play a leading role in coming with equipment, etc. But really, to get the infrastructure there, it's not that easy if you look at the next 5 years. And it's also cost-wise an interesting equation. We talked about it ends up at the end, it ends up in the rental rates. The rental rate is already under pressure. But if you invest in an infrastructure, it will cost money. And how does that whole change of mind affect the way we spend our money? And that's something that we all have to get into in that change and understand what that means. But it is capable, it is possible, but it's going to be costly. And we need to understand how that business model works for all of us.
Yeah, we have a question here. Actually, we were talking about products just now and how things are changing and developing with those. There's a question here specifically, I think, for Karel. As COVID has facilitated the increased use of virtual communication tools, do you see a change in how your salespeople approach the market? And so do you see a need for manufacturers, for example, to develop virtual sales tools that can assist your sales force?
Yeah, we have talked earlier, Euan, about trade shows and the way you communicate. The communication is becoming more intimate, more customized, more personal. Therefore, the tools that we are actually forced to use within this period are good tools that we also can use when there is no COVID at all, because they're reaching people. They can be quickly customized without extra cost. They can be very intimate. You have a one-on-one discussion. You don't have to spread the information over a larger amount of groups. Like we talked about shows like Bauma, we're going to have a separate show ourselves, which is really virtual and lively there. So it's a hybrid. But that virtual part is going to be a huge part of our sales and marketing, but also service tools to make sure that people understand our products, but also how to repair them and how to make them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and exactly. And just to be clear about that, JLG decided not to attend the next Bauma. And just perhaps while, as you mentioned it, can you explain your reasons behind that decision?
Yeah, it was something that was always a discussion within the teams here. Is okay, what does it bring you, and what can we bring to the industry? What can the industry bring to us? What is the at the end the benefit of being at a show like that? You share information in a very broad sense, not only to the customers you want to reach, but also to your competitors, to the whole world. Is that where you want to go? No, that discussion is always there, and I think we're not the only ones that have that debate in their mind. But then all of a sudden, because of COVID and the whole acceleration of doing things more virtual, we made the decision to try it out in a different way for next year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so to move on then, perhaps we could look at what other products do you think rental companies will be adopting? Do you see your mix of products changing and developing both now and in the future? Do you see perhaps you're using more niche products like spider lifts, perhaps? Chris, what would you say to that?
When spider lifts, since you mentioned it, just came out, I thought, my goodness, the expense of this product and how I thought delicate it was to be on a mass-produced offering. I was having a hard time buying into it. And now I see more tree trimmers and tree and brush removal companies using them. And that is a very rough and tumble group of individuals. I was very, very surprised that they took as quickly as they did. And now there are so many different varieties of product offering that but it is always going after the niche product so that our products are not getting less expensive. And if we keep buying the same products and they're growing in cost, but we're not keeping up as quickly with our rental rates, we have to start to put more focus on more of the specialty equipment, which are also very expensive, but it's new to the industry in many areas, or at least new to the markets in many areas. And we're able to get a much higher rate based on the sophistication of the product, as well as the training that comes along with it. You don't send out a 150-foot rotating telehandler on a truck without any education. We make certain that one of the customer's employees has to be at our yard the day before or a few days before for training, and then yet a trainer is sent out to the projects. But that's all coupled together with the expertise and the rate that we're charging for it. So it's not terribly competitive. And those that have a competitive product, we have taken phone calls at our branches from sales reps of competitive product who didn't have the training, asking how to get the machine to move, their variants of it. So it's expensive, but the payback is all worthwhile.
We probably should ask maybe the burning question, since we're getting a little short on time here. So Ivan, what is the biggest opportunity you see for the access market coming in 2022?
Well, to me, first of all, what we need to do as rental companies, we have a responsibility, and we are much closer to the end user than OEMs. So we have to really pay attention and ask our customers and users what they need and why they work, how they work. Because we assume they have always been working with the same tools in the same way. And maybe there are accessories or machines which can help them work much better. And we have to do that. And that makes a difference with your competitors, because you're much closer to your customers. You understand what they require, you understand their concerns, and then you have to adapt. But of course, doing that means you have to work differently. You have to pay a lot more attention to them, and you have to keep on asking questions. And sometimes it might be annoying for them, because it's like, you're questioning the way I'm working, or how is this working here? And but no, that's trying to understand why you work this way and what accessories or tools would help you to work better. So that's one of the things we have to do, we should be doing. And of course, digitalization, it's something that's already there. You have to manage your fleet. You have to better perform. You have to get data. You have to collect the data. You have to analyze the data, and then you have to put all this together and try that the customer gets the best rental experience possible. So it's not easy, but we have to take a look into all these different points, trying to understand what the customer wants, what they need. Sometimes they don't even know what they need. They assume they've been working this way, and that's the only way of doing it. But then, on the other hand, you've got machines and you've got software systems. So you have to understand really the data you need to better manage your fleet, to better manage your company, and to give a better service to your customers. So doing all this, I think there's a hell of an opportunity moving forward, but of course it will not be easy.
And Chris, biggest opportunity for North America, do you see the infrastructure bill playing a part, or is it going to be something else?
No, I think the infrastructure bill slowly being released is going to have a benefit. But there was so much work going on before the bill that this can only help accentuate the speed of more work being let. But you may not see some of these projects for 3 years based on design build. These aren't shovel-ready projects that are ready to go and be off on running. But I think one area that we're concentrating on is employee recruitment, employee education, and employee training. We're finding that if you're looking for a bunch of 30-year-olds that are going to come ready and willing to join our industry, they've already been working somewhere else. We want to get individuals, college is not meant for everyone. And we are trying to associate ourselves with different pilot programs at different schools that allow individuals to know what their future could be like. Even those that are mechanically inclined, we lose very often to the BMW and the Mercedes-Benz dealerships because they work in a wonderful air-conditioned environment and beautiful. But if we educate what our industry is about and educate the parents of those children at the same time, there's an awful lot of upside with all of the benefits that come along with the wage and intelligence that they're gaining as their employees of ours. And that's every company within our industry.
Karel, from JLG's perspective, hot spots in the market in 2022, new products.
Yeah, I think 2022 is pretty close by. It's here. It's almost there. The demand and supply will be the equation that we need to get through as a whole industry. We are looking at new products, niche products. We're looking at the Da Vinci, which is a full electrical, which brings back energy. We're looking at the self-leveling chassis. We're looking really at products that are niche, focused on solving specific products or problems, which thinks it helps us to position the product and to give the value that asks for, of course, some pricing, but will obviously also bring the benefits for it. So that's a big part for us, and we will continue with that in 22. The infrastructure for electrification is for me a big challenge to get that full equation around for everybody, that the demanding contribution for that should be paid by the full cycle, by everybody that is in the industry, including the rental pricing. It will touch everything. That's something we probably need to figure out in 22, how to have that business model developed. That's a big challenge for all of us in 22. And then another thing, which I think is just a little different, which I'm seeing happening, is if you look at our industry, this is not only 22 is really looking forward, but 22 might be a year that brings the spark to us, is diversity and inclusion. Is if you look at the picture in front of you, Lindsey, I'm glad you're with us this afternoon, but our industry is a lot of white men dominating it. But the good news is we have now Megan Tennell being the president of the AEM. And next year, Karen Nars will be the first non-Anglo-Saxon woman as the president of IPEF. This is, I think, a moment that we just should not let go by, but see if we talked about talent earlier. We should be able, and we're working hard in it within JLG and also within my organization in Europe to get more, in this case, gender diversity. In my team, it's 50-50 as we speak, but also in the next layers. I think this is a moment also to think about things like that, because that will make our industry much more sustainable over time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and before we finish this, just a couple of quick questions here. It seems Chinese manufacturers are going to lithium quicker than JLG and Genie. Where does JLG and Genie stand on this? But I know that JLG, you have a big new partnership in the lithium area. That's right, isn't it, Karel?
Yes, Microvest is the company that we have a shared ownership in. So that is, of course, bringing us close to lithium-ion. And that's even broader than JLG. That's really an Oshkosh initiative. We just talked about the spider lifts that are lithium-ion already for a long period of time in our partnership with Sinoa. We are in the race for getting more lithium-ion in products, and we are also finding the balance where can lead acid still be an answer for solving the problem versus lithium-ion. So we're really trying to balance that also. But we have a lot of activity in that sense, absolutely. Now for Genie, I cannot speak, of course, but I would be surprised if they are not also looking into that thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you. And Chris, what's your opinion about lithium and lead acid when it comes to your products in your fleet?
Well, I think the upside is there's dramatic upside to it, but the rental rate needs to be able to sustain the cost of the investment. So, and I can tell you that if the last 3 units are lithium driven with a cost that's twice what the standard unit is, those lithium driven units are going out at the standard unit rate. And we can't get ourselves into that situation because it'll immediately show a horrible return on investment. As far as the product itself is concerned, I think it's fantastic, but we need to be able to afford a slower return on that product and be able to sell the economies of scale of that product.
I think, building on that, it's the whole total cost of ownership discussion is going to have a total different equation in the next years coming. It's going to be so important to understand what it means, because it is indeed, it's all about cost again, and how does that oversee the whole life cycle? What does that mean for the rental company? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for the user? It's a big equation that we need to also be much more specific in.
Yeah, and Ivan, what's your view on the expansion of lithium power products?
Well, as of today in the Spanish market, there is not a big demand as far as I understand. There is a lot more demand in the northern European countries, but of course it will have an impact. And as these two gentlemen have said, the total cost of ownership and the total cost, the initial cost, we have to, as rental companies, take that into consideration, and then we'll see how it goes. And because you're giving an added value to your customers, and of course they will appreciate that in the short and the mid run.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that brings us to the end. Is that right, Lindsey? Have you got any more questions?
We've covered it all, I think. I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, EasyBook Training and Lawson's Global Equipment, as well, again, to our panelists. Thank you very much for all your great insights today. That's been fantastic. An email will be sent out next week with a link to watch today's recorded event, but it'll also be available on the website. So you can look forward to seeing that. But that's it for today. And thank you to all the viewers for watching us, and good day. Thank you.